All right. Welcome to everyone here. Welcome to those online. What a pleasure. So just a couple of introductory things. Uh, we are just so privileged to have so much diversity here that live with us much of the time. And at this time of year, Canada's birds and the New England's birds are coming through. So just what we get a chance to see is just a joy. And so I'd love to just share some thoughts about what you might see if you get out there. Um, some thoughts. We had a question on walks. The question was, do I intend on giving spring migration walks? And that answer is yes. And just to let you know, I'm experimenting with what kind of walks work. So if anyone had thoughts or requests, so we had a great time this Sunday, which was yesterday. We did a walk on trails we're making. So there's like established trails and also trails we're feeling out and trying to work out at Audubon Sanctuary. So we did one there. We had a kids walk, but we didn't have any kids. So we're experimenting and not quite sure what'll work. This Thursday, I'm going to do a walk I've only led once. It's a beautiful area along the Delaware River, along the Mongop Stream near Glen Space. So there's a huge place to park on the Delaware. You can walk there, and that's a neat environment. But if you just walk up the road like a tenth of a mile, there's this beautiful stream and this beautiful trail that goes through an evergreen forest. And so that's not a place that we go as often. But there are just so many beautiful hiking areas in this area. So we're experimenting. So the answer to your question is yes, I will be giving at least 2 to 3 walks a month. And I'm actually trying to add on to that. So, there's just so many things to see. And if anyone had any thoughts or suggestions, I'd be happy to entertain them. And I love leading walks, but also one of the things that would make me really happy is obviously if you get turned on to just a place near your home and you're like, oh, I didn't even know this place existed. I mean, I think we all do that, like, oh, there's a great place. So there's the Bashakill is a great place to go walking. There's an environmental center right up the road from the main boat launch called Meek. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not its website. That's a different Meek. Okay. Oh, okay, there we go. um and there's but we have the National Wild Wallkill Refuge. The Delaware, especially as you get into PA, is they were actually considering making that a national park, but that's a national area. The Appalachian Trail goes through here, the Long Path, the Shawangunk. There's so many places, and with such beautiful weather, I hope this presentation inspires you to go out and try to see some of those. Okay, that was. Forgive me with all the videos I do. This is a newer one. I just want to make sure that this gets incorporated. Oh, it was all right. All right. So waterfowl. Let me talk about them. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. Okay, is this? There we go. There we go. Just kind of to preface this, the weird thing about waterfowl and I say this because science, we're still learning stuff. There's a lot I don't know. There's a lot science doesn't know. So what I'm going to say is kind of new. Um, when 2 weeks ago, we talked about the evolution of birds. If you were to ask, like, what are the bottom branches of birds? Ducks and chickens are one of them. So ducks and chickens are cousins. All right. When I was younger, that wasn't the thought that, if you look at a bird guide, they'd be in different places. But, they're fowl. Not only are ducks or chicken fowl, but waterfowl obviously are fowl. And one of the big questions is, did a dinosaur ever see a duck or at least a duck a duck ancestor? And the answer is maybe on that. Like that wouldn't be true of hawks. No dinosaur ever saw a hawk. No dinosaur ever saw a sparrow. No dinosaur ever saw a woodpecker. But when you get to the fowl, they are such a deep branch in the family tree of birds that there's actually fossils which look like really long-legged ducks, the ancestors of ducks, right before dinosaurs go extinct. So galliforms, that would be the chickens and their friends, and anseriforms, that would be the ducks and geese and their friends. We think that they predate the extinction of the dinosaurs, so they survived that mass extinction that wiped out 60% of life on Earth. So that's interesting, or at least to me. At this time of year, one of the interesting things is just like the variety that we have, as you know, especially as they migrate through. So as I go through this, we'll be stressing different kinds. Some of them, like you feel, these are our ducks, these are our geese. Like I saw them all summer, but some you might say, wow, that's weird. I've never seen that one. And that's because they are only here during the autumn migration and the spring migration. And one of the lessons I regret learning so late in life is every time of year is a good time for birding. You see different kinds. And like, for example, in spring, I would just, oh, I'm going to wait till the weather gets a little warmer, like still chilly in March, early April. I'll wait till May. But then I'd miss, you know, ducks that I would have otherwise seen. And so this is not only a great time of year to be out, but it is the time of year to be out. Welcome, welcome for many of the ones I'm going to talk about. Okay, let's talk with swans. So today is the swans we go first, then the geese, then the ducks, and then, you know, any thoughts that that you have. So these are, you know, like these can be big birds, or like so. And trumpeter swans, like one of the heaviest birds which manages to fly. All right, so that's certainly something. When you see a swan, the very first thing that you do is you look at the beak and you look for the color. All right, you expect to see orange. So you know, when I see a swan, I expect to see orange. As I'll show you, just it was like 4 days ago, Friday. I was somewhere, I was on a trail and someone said, oh, there's a swan over here. I'm like, oh, that's great. I love swans. So I'm expecting to see orange. I saw black. If you see black on the bill of a swan, get excited. A black bill is exciting, but this is still nice. This, however, this is the introduced species. So this is not native to our area. This is the mute swan. So beautiful bird, but not native. And if you notice the big black knob that it has on its forehead, that's the way you would tell males from females. So that would be a male. The knob is a little bit larger there. Other than that, it's hard. Like which of those are the males or which of those are females? I'll talk about the juveniles. They have a grayer bill, the ones this year. It's hard other than the size. Now, that alone, I'm going to talk about mating and courtship a little bit. Swans look alike. Males look like females. And when we get to Canada geese, geese look alike. Males look like females. And actually that hints at a couple things. You could lay money on a bet and most of the time, you know, win the bet. Because you would, if you said, I'll bet you they mate for life. Right? If they look alike, betting they mate for life, you're probably right. And if you said, I'll bet you the male helps to take care of the young, you'd probably be right. When we get to the ducks, males and females look very different. But if you laid your money on the opposite, I'll bet you the male is gone before the eggs hatch. You'd be right. I'll bet you they'll be with different partners next season. You'll be right. So for some reason, not having this big gender difference seems to go along with certain behaviors in the waterfowl. Right. Now, mute swans are great in this area because we get to see them hatch. We've had at you know, 15 minutes up the road, the 6.5 station sanctuary for Audubon has typically has baby swans, which are called cygnets. And I'll show you pictures from this year as well. So if you're a swan, let's start talking about relationships. They tend to mate for life. Now, I want to, you know, just be clear on mating for life. There are certain things like, so if a partner dies, all right, then they might, you know, mate again. With a lot of birds, if they try to raise young and they're not successful in 1 year, then that might be a reason for separation. But in general, they do mate for life. We do kind of have to be careful. So mating for life doesn't necessarily mean all of the eggs in a nest have the same father. All right, so that's not absolutely what we're saying. Some birds are a little stricter than that. Some birds not. That just like, even if you say, oh, like these are partners, they're mating for life, but you know, there's all sorts of extra partner coupling going on. Nevertheless, with swans, they usually mate for life. And just, you know, shout out to those, and not, you know, I don't want to criticize people too much. But if they can live 20 years in captivity, and 20 years in the wild and 40 years in captivity, like that can be a long partnership, you know. And just, I don't know, or maybe I'll just speak for myself, but human partnerships don't always last anywhere near that long. So, you know, kudos to them for, you know, having these long-term relationships, which can last decades. Their courtship can be beautiful. So there's all of these behaviors that they can do. And so that's something that I try to do, that even if it's a bird I know, like mute swans, I know mute swans. But every now if you watch them, you'll catch some like, ooh, that was pretty, I watched some courtship. It's just easy to say, I know that bird, and keep going. But sometimes they're doing something that you don't um, anticipate. Now, as they court, they can stand with their heads erect, you're rising out of the water. They can intertwine their necks. One thing they often do is swim around, especially the male, with his wings raised as kind of more of an intimidation. Like they often scare away Canada geese, kind of with the idea that any largish bird, get out of here. Well, like, this is my area, this is where we're going to lay our nest. So you say, oh, what a beautiful swan, that's so beautiful. Well, it's actually a threatening move. Hey, I'm swimming around, I'm the biggest bird around here, you stay away. And you can see the Canada geese getting away as fast as they can. All right. So come spring, and I'll kind of follow a year in their lives for a second. Come spring, they'll be building a nest of vegetation, laying 4 to 10 eggs. The group that hatched this year hatched 8, of which 3 are still alive. Um, they need about a month to sit on before they hatch and look like these baby cygnets. And they'll come out a little bit later than Canada geese. And then you realize, oh, wait, that makes sense. They're bigger. So bigger eggs are just going to take a little bit longer to brood over. And so you'll see baby Canada goose goslings before you see swan cygnets. Okay. Um, a lot of birds, especially if they're bigger, it takes them a while. Like, so these ones which hatched this past year, last year, they may not mate until they're 3 or 4. All right. So just as, like, we have teenage years, someone is independent potentially, and potentially full grown, but nevertheless may not be reproductive yet. Now, there's other different kinds of swans. So the other one you might see during migration are tundra swans. And this was at the Bashkill. And the one thing you notice, black bills. I love black bills because they're not the introduced one. So these are a little bit smaller. All right. And once again, they don't tend to summer here. But if you see a swan, look for the bill. It'll probably be orange and still a beautiful bird. But if you saw a black bill, that's an exciting bird. There's different types of swans throughout the world. If you were to go to Iceland, all these whooper swans. And if you're very lucky, and I would normally, so here's the orange once again. If you're very lucky, in addition to a tundra swan here, you might actually make out the very large one, the trumpeter swan. Far more of them are west of here. So this was in Chicago. That's a bigger trumpeter swan. They have a little red at the corner of their jaw. But, okay, I'm sorry, I have to switch. So trumpeter swans, you're very lucky if you see. But we do live in changing times. I mean, climate change, et cetera. So I saw a trumpeter swan this spring in Pennsylvania, and I saw one Friday night. And I say that because that's very unusual. Like, I think prior to this, I've seen trumpeter swans twice in our area. So, maybe something's up and they're coming through. But you might notice just the bill has a different shape, much longer. Here you can see a little bit of red, and they're a bigger bird. So, like, I'm a birder. That was exciting Friday night. Like, that's not a common thing. So, when you go out, it's a great time of year. Who knows what you'll see. So that's a mute swan, and there's a trumpeter swan, just for comparison. These big birds are heavy, and so it takes them a while to take off. So if you're going to watch them trying to take off, they'll be flapping over the surface of the water for a little while before they take off. So swans, absolutely beautiful. But we have other beautiful birds to get to. So we jump into the geese. Yeah. No, so the two that I just saw were in Pennsylvania. One was near Stroudsburg, the movie, and the one that I saw was at a state park called Promised Land State Park in Pennsylvania.
Others.
Yes, yes, yes.
Parkways, I come to Middletown from Town of Goshen is to go on Echo Lake Road.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually, it was originally a dug tributary to the Rockville River. And so it's really not a natural pond or lake.
Mm-hmm.
But I was seeing last
Sorry.
years how it has ecologically changed. It used to be at least 2 swans, if not 4, that lived there.
Mhm.
Raised them, and now there's nothing. Because all
It's so
green harm.
well. Oh, yes. And so that would be another discussion. We have an invasive species called water chestnut. You can see it on the road right here at St. Albert's here. But 6.5, it's really degraded. So invasive species are really affecting our wildlife's ability. So if you couldn't hear at home, Dorothy was just commenting that a place where she had normally seen uh, swans, not as many. It's been very, very dry the past 2 summers, but you're right, invasive species like water chestnut.
Well, I'm kind of watching right now. I'll look at it. You said,
Was it against the law, cleaning up the lakes?
Well, so good question. So let me answer really quickly because that would be another discussion. Why don't I, or as Orange County Audubon, clean up the invasives and work on the Goshen Sanctuary? And the answer is I try. I've spent hours and hours. The Bashakil, I have a picture that I sent, like I'm in a canoe full of water chestnut that I pulled out. But there you can't. There's too many. Like I've gotten thousands of plants and then turned around and seen, oh, but there's millions. And she's like, oh, well, why don't you just pull them out? Well, because the mud can go up to, like, the water's not deep enough for a canoe, but the mud comes up to here. It's really hard to walk. So there's that. And you're just like, well, you could dredge. Well, dredging might actually not be legal depending on the scenario and what stuff is there. Crazy expensive, especially if the mud is. So, an excellent question. Can't someone do something? And it's an incredible amount of money. So, like with the Bashigal, because the water chestnuts were at the beginning stage, I think we're on it. But once it gets out of control, that's a tough problem. So great comments. And I'm sorry, before I leave the mute swans, last year there were 6 cygnets that hatched, of which 1 survived. And then this year we started with 8. There are currently 3. So there's a song. Okay, so there's more of that if you're interested. On to geese. So geese also, males look like females. You can tell the difference between a male and a female Canada goose, but it's hard. And as a result, if you bet, I'll bet you they mate for life, you'd be right. If you said, I'll bet you the males help care for the kids, you'd be right. All right. So that's just something that seems to go together in this. Now, they're impressive because look at where they're living and look at where they're eating. They're eating dead grass, like they're eating vegetation. Lots of birds eat plant stuff, but it's usually the fruits, the seeds. Not many eat the leaves. It's hard to be that type of herbivore. And when you think about the mammals that are herbivores like that, cows, think of their guts, their intestines and their stomachs are huge. All right, goats are huge, deer are huge. You need a big gut to process this low-grade fibrous material. And for most birds, you just can't have a big gut and fly. So geese, they eat this vegetation. So kudos to them. Now, if I say Canada goose and you're not really excited, I mean, that's okay. I get it. But I do just point this out. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was so little regulation of hunting that not only did some species go extinct, some species were approaching it, and people were wondering about the Canada goose. All right, Canada geese were gone from much of New York, as impossible as that seems. All right, so the fact that some people consider them to be so common that they're a nuisance, that's actually a conservation, success story. Good for them. Like it worked. Maybe worked a little too well. We could argue about that later. But we've taken species which were, becoming harder and harder to see, and now they're thriving. In spring, you'll see the adults sitting on nests of aquatic vegetation, and like I said, their eggs will hatch a little earlier than those of the swans. They come out at night, so if you have a trail camera, all right, they're active at night as well. So that's kind of neat. Okay. And so I have videos. I want to get to the ducks, so I'm just giving you a smattering of, you can see the geese growing up over the summer. They're covered with their downy feathers at first. You can watch courtship and aggression behaviors. Look at them all hissing at each other. That's a territorial thing. Notice a lot of them lowering their heads as they approach each other. That's actually going on at this time of year. So even if you know a bird, maybe you say like, oh, they're doing something new like courtship. That's neat. But we have other geese as well. In fact, one we hope is coming, in 2 months, called snow geese. So here's a snow goose by itself, which is unusual. Normally they're in big groups, but beautiful white black tips on the feathers, right? And they lay their eggs and raise their young here, like as far north as you can get. So birds fly south for the winter, but for these birds, Orange County is south. So we're Florida to them. So we have no expectations of seeing them in the summer. But come December, we may look up at either a migration or maybe even staying in southern Orange County, these flocks of snow geese. And the flocks can be huge, as you can see. And as they quick change direction, all of a sudden you go from the white to the black tips of the wings. Very impressive. Usually you find them like, in southern Orange County in the Black Dirt region. But we had like 100 of them on the lake here for about a week, about 5 years ago. And from here they went to Davidge Park in Middletown. One place, if you ever happen to go to Philly and you're going, like you go to Stroudsburg, you take 33 to the Allentown area, you're cutting through Allentown through 22. They love that area. The farms there, they eat the waste farm. So just, if you look outside, this is not at all an uncommon sight for Allentown in winter as you're driving through that area. So they also mate for life. There's a whiter form. There is actually a darker form. So it's not as common, but some snow geese are a little bit darker. And families may stay together for a year. And I apologize. I'm probably being insensitive, but I can't tell them. If I was a snow goose, I couldn't tell who was my brother, sister, father, mother. Like, they don't look the same to me. So how families stick together in big, flocks like that, I personally find that fascinating. But if you go in winter to southern Orange County, very often, especially at sunset, you'll see just big groups of them flying over. That's neat. And on rare occasions, something unusual happens, like here is a snow goose. In warmer months, you see it green, but it broke its wing. And then when you see it trying to stretch its wing, you can see it was unable to fly with the rest of its group for that reason. Okay. We have one more goose that you might see called a brant. It looks like a Canada goose, but every now and like I try to do this, some birders say, look at every bird, because you might say, bunch of Canada geese over there, and you keep on walking. But if you look, this was at Liberty Loop in southern Orange County. They're like, oh, that's not a Canada goose, that's a brant. All right, so that's another goose. Normally you see them a little closer to salt water. This is actually by the Statue of Liberty. Like the last time I was at the Statue of Liberty, there was just a whole bunch of brants swimming around, but we get them here as well. So that's kind of fun. Okay. Now the ducks. Now there's a lot of ducks. So we want to tell the difference between the ducks. So we start with the philosophical question with ducks. To dabble or to dive? That is the duck question, because we want to break them into two groups. So you don't say like, oh, which of all of these ducks? You're like, oh, I know I'm looking at one of these, or I know I'm looking at one of these. So dabbling is the term we use for if you simply upend yourselves, put your butt in the air, and now you're in shallow water. So your head with its, duck bill, which is a wide bill, can now grab aquatic vegetation. So notice the mallards, the swans will do it, the Canada geese will do it. They are all dabbling ducks. Notice they are near shore. They don't go underwater. They just upend themselves, put their heads in the water. That is what's called dabbling. So if you see a bird doing that, you say, aha, it's a dabbling duck. So I've just cut my list in half. It's not a diving duck. We'll get to them second. Right. So there are lots of dabbling ducks. The mallard is the one we're most familiar with, although there's a lot of other ones like this pintail. All right, so here's the mallard. I know we've seen mallards. I'd like to certainly point out the more exotic ones, but that's a beautiful green head. Like if you ask, like, how many other birds do we have that are that green? All right, like parrots are. All right, but that is pretty brilliant. Like we'd be really impressed with mallards if it wasn't for the fact that they're so common. Right. Why do they have green heads? Well, it's kind of weird. There's nuances to this answer. First off, they don't have green pigment. Like if you take red cardinal feathers, grind it up, the powder is red. If you take yellow goldfinch feathers, grind it up, the powder is yellow. If you take green or blue feathers, grind them up, you get brown. So there's not a green pigment the way that there are red, yellow, and orange pigments. It's the way that the light interferes as it bounces off the structure of the feathers. So these are called structural pigments. Also, they've got bright red feet. That helps. And also they've got this nice blue section on their wings with a white border. The white border is neat because black ducks can be confused with mallards, but they just have the blue stripe without the white border. So mallards are actually quite colorful birds. All right. So they don't have it because of a green pigment, right? They have it for other reasons. A second reason that they have green heads is testosterone. All right. So around courtship time, whether you're a courting bird or a courting mammal, testosterone is main, and this could change things. Testosterone and estrogen, if you are interested in how they work, the main way that they work is both of them go inside the nucleus of a cell and stick to DNA. Proteins do, or they can. And when they stick to DNA, they turn genes on that were otherwise off. So it's not just a question of what genes someone has, me, you, a mallard duck, but what genes we're using. So testosterone and estrogen can change what genes you're using, taking a gene which is off to making it on. All right, so I go into all the genetics of it if you're interested. So around the time where mallards are going to start trying to attract mates, they say, I want to look pretty. And so now all of a sudden they make testosterone, which when they make feathers now, they will put green pigment in the feathers. In late summer, they don't do that. And so therefore, in late summer, male mallards look an awful lot like females. All right, so really the way to tell them is to see the yellow of the male's bill and the green of the female's bill. But around this time of year, they're starting to turn green again. All right, so just if you see a mallard now, you might want to take a closer look because you'll see splotches of green. The green is just starting to come in on their heads. They'll start courting, all right, as we get into winter, hopefully trying to form the pairs that will last with them until spring. Now, ducks are seasonally monogamous, which means that they may pair up for this year, but they'll be with another partner next year. And they are notorious, mallards being the most notorious, for extra pair couplings. So it is common that a nest of ducklings has multiple male parents. And so mallards not only do that, mallards among themselves, mallards will mate with as many, like lots of different species. So there's actually a lot of different species which can hybridize with mallards because male mallards, they're trying to mate with everything out there. Like ducks, once the eggs are getting close to hatch, the male leaves. All right, so the ducklings never see their father, and it's the female alone which raises them. You can tell it's a female because of her orange bill. At this time of the summer, a male would look pretty similar, but would have a yellow bill. Okay, so these are ducklings that only the female is raising. Raises the question, at least to me, why is it harder to find female ducks? I mean, so not only are they camouflaged, so that's a good reason, but there are actually fewer of them. So the world has fewer female ducks than it does males. One of the reasons is they're only the ones which are raising the young. So I'm sure that there's extra burdens and predation which they suffer as a result. So mallards are with us all summer, as is this duck called the wood duck. Wood ducks are beautiful when you see the males during breeding season. Although outside of that, it's harder to see because now they look a lot like females. So here are male wood ducks there, but it's outside breeding season. Oops. All right, so they don't have the same color that they would. You know, a lot of ducks, if they're going to maybe attract a female and, you know, perhaps father some young, they put their energy into making really pretty feathers. But if, you know, it's not a time of the year when females are mating or interested in them, well, they say, well, why would I bother? Because the only thing I would do is attract predators. All right, so wood ducks stay with us all summer. These other ones are mostly only migratory. All right, black ducks may be with us here, but for example, here's one called a pintail. Beautiful duck, and you can see where it gets its name. It's got these long tail feathers, which when it dabbles, you know, they stick straight up, looking like a pin. Also, you know, this chocolate brown head with this white pattern. Actually, a very pretty duck. All right, bluish bill. All right, so pintails are beautiful, beautiful ducks. And they're migrants. All right, so you can't see them in the middle of winter. You can't see them in the middle of the summer. It would only be during migration. So, you know, if you wanted to start walking near wetlands near your house, I mean, look at the ducks. There's ones which are there that you don't often get to see. And when I say migration, migration lasts months, but whether it be the raptors or whether it be the ducks, we split that up into seasons. So for example, broadwing hawks are migrating now. In fact, we've missed a lot of them. Whereas a lot of the hawks, they're really going to get going in the next couple of weeks. So when you say, oh, I want to see the hawk migration, when do you go? Do you go in September? Do you go in October? You'll see different hawks. Same thing with ducks. These are very early. Like it's very common that, you know, I'm thinking, oh, I can't wait for March when everything melts, you know, when I'll start seeing some of these migrant ducks. And it's February, there's still snow on the ground, and all of a sudden you get the pintails coming in. They come early. All right. So, you know, just there's differences there. That's kind of neat. Looking like the mallards are the black ducks. All right, so there's a black ducks. Chocolate brown, all right, but yellow bill. The male mallards have a yellow bill. Here's a black duck here. One of the things I put in my newsletter, so I write a newsletter for the Audubon Society, and it's, you know, an update on all of the wildlife which is around. If you wanted to just contact the Orange County Audubon Society, just ask to get put on the email list, happy to do it. And you can get it monthly. I mean, if you want to become a member, that would be awesome. But even if you don't, you know, at this point, just, you know, if you wanted to say, hey, I'd love to see what pictures of ducks I might see if I go out this month or other birds. Once again, by all means, and you'll see this. One of the things, if you're you know, trying to get your chops with bird watching, relative size helps. Okay, and especially, for example, mallards and black ducks, they're about the same size. But notice how much bigger than they are than these teals, which I'll be talking about separately. So that's a hint. Now that hint is useful in spring when they're colorful, but when everybody's like brown in early fall, they'll look the same. But all of a sudden you can say, wait, that one's much bigger than that one. So relative size is good. So mallards, I mean, mallards are beautiful, but let's say I've seen mallards, I'm looking for something different. Well, you could use the mallards to help you identify which ones are different. So you could scan an area and you say, all right, who's smaller than the mallard? All right, and then you're like, ooh, that's an interesting duck. So black ducks would be about the size of a mallard, but here you can see, here's a duck that's, you know, maybe close to half the size. Okay, so black ducks are exciting to see in our area because while all birds in general are declining in North America has lost a quarter of its birds in recent decades. Some are declining faster than others, and black ducks would be among them. One of the reasons is that mallards are so common, and mallards mate with black ducks and then make these hybrids, you know, which are partway between them. So that's affecting black duck populations. Right. So if you see black ducks, we're actually excited to see those, you know, in a nice chocolate brown here. Teals. Our teals come in colors, at least their wings do. So we have a green winged teal and a blue winged teal. These are our two smallest ducks. The green winged teal just a little bit smaller, blue winged teal just a little bit bigger. Because they're both small, because they're both called teals, you say they're related. Actually, they're not really related. Green winged teals, close relatives, or at least in the same genus as mallards. The blue winged teals, they're in with another group called the northern shoveler. So, we give names to things, but sometimes those names don't reflect biological groupings as much. Here you can see why they're called green winged teals. If they were to spread their wings flying or while they're in the water, you say, look at the nice green wings that you can see. Now, something that I have taken up the habit, when ducks take off, I just snap pictures. Because if a bunch of ducks take off, they're saying, there's all this movement, I'm not quite sure what I saw. But then you look back and you say, ooh, green winged teal, beautiful. But then you might even say, look at that, see the white face? That's a blue winged teal, and they're harder to see. I didn't even know, I just thought it was a bunch of mallards. All right, but then they flew off and I realized, there's a couple interesting things in there. So maybe if you do that, maybe you get out and, there's some ducks in the corner. I think they're going to take off in a second. When they take off, snap a couple pictures and then look to see whether you get anything interesting. Okay. Green-winged teals, we actually expect to stay a little longer because they are better at feeding in mud than most ducks. They have kind of more sieve-like knobs on their bills, so it's easier for them to live in mud flats. And so it has been so dry, not only this summer but the past couple summers. A lot of our wetlands, which used to have deeper water, now more muddier. So some ducks may not spend as much time here on migration routes. Green-winged teals maybe more, and you can get big groups of them. So here's hoping that we get to see them. Now, in autumn, I mean, every time of year is great to go bird watching, but autumn is a little tougher. So in spring, I say, look at that head, look at the green stripe, green-winged teal, I can tell. And then you go out now, and from far away, they just all look like a bunch of female mallards, or they're just all brownish. And now, I mean, the male mallards look the same. So you just see a whole lot of brown ducks everywhere. All right. If they start to spread their wings a little and it's sunny, you can say, ooh, look at all the little splotches of green, because a mallard would be blue there. That stripe is called a speculum. So those are green-winged teals. But otherwise, I mean, look at this bird right here. Like, that would be a hard one to identify. So autumn bird watching is a little more challenging. That would be another reason to take pictures of them as they take off, because you might say, I see the green there where before I didn't. And that's also another use of the relative size. You're like, it looks like they look like brown ducks. Like, what would I see? But if a mallard is there, you could say, ooh, look how small they are. They're half the size of a mallard. That has to be a teal. All right, so little hints for bird watchers there. All right, so this is our little wetland over here. More of those. Now somewhere, I think it should be coming up. I feel like talking about it now. Is somewhere. I'm sorry, I make so many videos, I lose some. Somewhere I have a really good error. Here somewhere. I mentioned that they don't have a real greenish pigment. It's a structural pigment that makes green. And one of the interesting things that you can see with teals is when the light changes, like if a bird's flying and it changes direction, all of a sudden the green on their wings looks blue, like a dark blue or an aqua. I'm sorry, I have that in the video. I can't find the video. But you can see like the same bird from then a different direction. There we go. So what duck is this? You say, green-winged teal, look at the green.
The hue of the speculum changes.
But then the same bird, and it's like, ooh, that looks a little more bluish. Wow, that looks blue. Once again, it's not like the red of a red shirt that's always going to look red. It's a structural pigment. the way that the microscopic structure of the feather filaments align, how it reflects duck. So then you see it from a slightly different angle, and you say, that looks like a very different color, even though it's the same bird. Okay. Now, green-winged teals are the smallest ducks, but they have cousins called blue-winged teals. Once again, they're not closely related, all right, but that's them. In spring, the males have like a bluish slate grue head, nice white stripe here, so they're easy to tell. However, in autumn, unless they fly, that would be another one where, you're pretty sure it is a teal. No, where did my, there we go. You're pretty sure it's a teal, but which one it is kind of hard. All right, so blue-winged teals, perhaps the best way at this time of year is once again to wait for till when they fly off. So come in spring, the males really have a notable facial pattern. All right, but when they take off, which I'm sure they will. All right, so here they are flying. Notice the forewing when it puts its wings down. I keep missing it. All right, so here there's a blue patch on their forewing. A lot of ducks have a speculum here on their hind wing, but here a blue patch on their forewing. You say, oh, that's a blue-winged teal. And if that's too fast for you, once again, another good reason just to, I see a bunch of ducks flying, I'm going to snap a bunch of pictures. And you might say, oh, like, they look nondescript, but all of a sudden, oh, look at those nice blue forewings. So far, we're still in the dabbling ducks, and there's a couple more. There's what's known as an American widgeon. They have kind of an interesting phase because there's a bunch going on, like a light blue bill, a white or a pale mohawk, a little greenish stripe near the eye, a head that's darker gray than the body, a white spot on the tail. So if you say, like, how can you tell a widgeon? Unlike green-winged teals have green spot on their wings, there's like a lot going on there. So it's just kind of the combination of things. Once again, we'll see them during migration, but they don't stay with us. They go north of here. So that is a dabbling duck. So I've just got more videos, every season if I see more, I'll add a few. Then the last dabbling duck is called the northern shoveler. Now, that's a beautiful bird in spring. So spring is just a great time to go birding because it's a big duck. It got bright colors, dark green head, chestnut side there, white here. But look at the bill. Like it's called the shoveler because it's this wide bill that lets it scoop up crustaceans and clams and crush them. And in addition to just like the aquatic vegetation that ducks are so good at getting. So if you look at that bill, just so much wider than your average duck here. So here, this was in 6.5, where we had blue-winged teals and a shoveler hanging out. But we can see them at Liberty Loop as well. They're beautiful. In autumn, once again, they look like female mallards. So, unless you say, oh, I see a bunch of little brown ducks. But then you check out the bill, and if you know your duck bills, you take a second, you say there's no way that bill belongs to a mallard. That's a shoveler. So that's interesting. Okay. Now, if you notice this duck, you should notice something different right away. All right, so here's another duck. But in a second, actually, I have 2 videos on these guys. I think I mixed up my videos. I think this does this. I'm sorry. We'll come back to you. This is the one. All right. So you'll notice right away, they're about to do something. They dove underwater. So the question with the ducks is, do I dabble? Do I just kind of stick my butt in the air and grab stuff? Or do I dive underwater? Because now the second group of ducks, these are the diving ducks. And if you see a duck diving, there's like so many ducks out there, but now you realize, oh, I've just split my groups in half. This is called a ringneck duck, and that was a horrible name. Because if you're a duck hunter, I mean, you'll kill a duck and then you'll see it. You're like, oh, there's a brown stripe on the neck. But if you're not a duck hunter, there's no way you're going to get close enough to see that. So, like, here's the name of a duck, and it doesn't make sense. It's got a beautiful ring on its bill, but that's not its name. It's the ring-necked duck because of that brown stripe. The light has to be just perfect in order for you to hit that. Most of the time, you would never notice. They travel in large groups. They like deep water. So if you're near a lake, you might see them in the middle. They're another group that doesn't mind the cold as much. So they will come earlier in the year than the others. So like February into early March, you'd be seeing the pintails, and you could be seeing the ring-necked ducks. We'll just watch the ring-necks. And they're very pretty ducks. Once again, in ducks, it's common that the males and females look different. So that's a male. The females will look brown because once again, they're raising the young by themselves. The males want to be showy to attract attention of the female. Females don't want to be showy because they're raising the young by themselves in a world of things that love to eat baby ducks. So they're trying to hide. All right. So if you see, more brown coloration, that would be the females. Now, I go out sometimes and I'm like, I don't see any, like, I don't see as many female. Oh, that's a mallard, actually. I wanted you to see a female. You'll see. Maybe not in this video. But once again, there aren't as many female ducks in the world as there are males. The troubles of raising the young, that's one. So that's a female ringneck, is one. But also, I've tried to research this, and I can't find anything, and I'm angry. But I have this hypothesis. Males die more than females do. So most miscarriages, for example, are males. Most infant deaths are males. And one of the main reasons is the Y chromosome is smaller than the X. So if there's a mistake on the X chromosome, typically a woman lives because she's got a good copy of the gene, while a man is affected because he doesn't. There's one bad copy. That's his only version. That's because of the sex chromosomes, X longer than the Y. Well, birds do it the opposite way. Birds have a ZW system where the males have two long chromosomes, they are ZZ, and the females have a long Z and a shorter W. And so the same way that males are more likely to be affected by a mutation on the sex chromosome, in ducks, that would be females. And so in my mind, that would be another reason why female ducks are not as common. But I've never been able to read, I keep looking for, explain why. I mean, look at all the males. So hard to see females, like that's the female in there. Why are there fewer female ducks? I think that must contribute, but I haven't been able to find actual research. There's a female right there. So these are diving ducks, and there are more. Diving ducks are often closer to like big marine areas. This is a bufflehead. The males have the big white spot. The females have a smaller spot. Once again, this will be the time of year to see them in the next month. They don't live here, and they're not here when the water's frozen. So it's the autumn migration and the spring migration that you see them. They're diving ducks. So if you ever wondered, you're like, ooh, just went underwater. That was a diving duck. This kind of looks like a bufflehead. It's called a golden eye. They've got golden eyes, as you might guess, little white spot on their face. As you'll notice, those are also diving ducks. They will go under water. We get them in here, especially in the deeper lakes. But if you were closer to the ocean, like more in New Jersey, if you're near a Great Lake, you'd be more likely to see those. Okay, so that's another diving duck. Here's another diving duck called a ruddy duck. And like they've got an interesting face that changes over the course of the year. But look at the tail, the way they hold their tail feathers. They don't always have to do that, but that's a tip off. Like, so you can tell one far away. And that's good because sometimes the light's not good. All right, you're like, oh, I wish the light was shining right on the duck so I could identify him. But then just looking at the tail feathers, you say, oh, that's a ruddy duck. I can tell by, its body's body position. So they're also diving ducks. So you'll see this was at Liberty Loop near the Wallkill, and you'll see a bunch of them diving there. All right, so they can feed in deeper water and access what's on the bottom there. So not only do we get migrants, we also get rare migrants in that if we live closer to the ocean, you would get a canvasback more commonly. But I've seen canvasbacks here. I saw one. This was actually, I was at the Renaissance Fair in Tuxedo, New York, saw the first one, but this one was on the Bashakill. So not every year, but if you're out there, canvasback, this is an unusual one to see, but nevertheless, you could see them. And I've even seen once a redhead. So that kind of looks the same, but this is a much smaller duck. I'm sorry, it was so far away. That's the best picture I could get. But we have two red-headed ducks, which are uncommon, but nevertheless, ones that you could see. The two last diving ducks, the giveaway for them is how thin the bill is. Most ducks have just a wide bill because they're grabbing aquatic vegetation and maybe some invertebrates. These two are looking after fish. And if you're going to hunt fish, there are lots of things which then get narrower jaws. Like, there are certain crocodiles known as gharials that have very narrow snouts that helps them close it quickly and snap on a fish. So these are common mergansers. In winter, they like deeper water, and the males are easy to see. So we might see these all winter. White body, green head, and a bright orange bill. Okay, that's a female there with the more reddish head. But once again, I hate to speak of this, but like there's what used to be normal, but like Liberty Loop used to have more water, but it gets so dry anymore that like you'd see them on the Delaware River or you'd see them on a big lake. But a lot of the places where I used to say go here to see common mergansers, I'm not quite sure that that you would. Here is a cousin of the common merganser, the hooded merganser. So they're smaller. Males have a black head, but a big white spot on the head that they can raise up and down. So you can see that there are muscles at the base of feathers. And so just like a cat can kind of express some of its emotions by how it holds its hairs, birds can do that too. Like birds that have crests, like blue jays or cardinals, it sometimes is a different height. And so if a bird's alarmed or a little unsure or defending a territory, a crest can come up and stand taller than it otherwise would. And the same is true of these hooded mergansers. I mean, look how, look, it's sitting flat there, and it can be raised as well. Just beautiful birds, and the majority of these pictures are taken 15 minutes from here. So these birds certainly were. And once again, look, there's ice on the water, and I think a lot of people would say like, I'm not going to go bird watching. I'm going to wait till it's good weather. But then you would have missed the hooded mergansers. All right, so there's a lot of good times to go bird watching, and just I'm just going to share a lesson. I'm angry with myself that I didn't figure out sooner. Like I would always say, I'm not going to go bird watching in the cold. I don't want to be cold. But I ski. And when I go skiing, I'm like, well, then you dress for the weather. Like I know how to dress to go skiing so that you can ski and not be cold. But then I wouldn't do that when I go bird watching. If you want to go bird watching in the winter, just wear what you would like if you were skiing, or just dress for it. I like the quote that there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing options or clothing choices. So just here's a bunch of neat birds that once again we don't see during summer, but we'll see here. And then there are the rare ones. I think attracting the female. So I would say two things. One, if so, I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak for any females. I certainly don't want to speak for female ducks. But if a female likes something, the males should do it because the females like it, and this then increases the chance of mating. So there's that. But then also just, I've used this joke before, and I apologize, I know some of you have heard it. But if I were to say, like, have you ever been at a party and you were about to like ask someone, to have a drink or to go out and see a movie or whatever, and then said, wait a minute, hold on, is this a member of my species? And I know that sounds silly, but think of these ducks. You're on a pond, and there can be in spring, there's a dozen different species there. So if you're looking for a date, there's a dozen wrong answers. I mean, so a lot of this is just wrong. So like this bright coloration, females can look around and say, black head, white spot. That's not mine. Green head, that's not mine. Long tail feathers, that's not mine. And then just kind of identify that way. So I think it serves these two things. One, especially because you're going to have so many ducks in the near vicinity, identifying which species you belong to, so you're not trying to mate with the wrong species. And then also with a lot of the birds, this is just a show of health. Like, look how bright my feathers look. Look how like tough. Because if you're sick at the time where you're fledging in your new feathers, they won't have the same color luster. They might not, be as long with the tail feathers, etc. So I think those two answers are. Merganser, a hooded merganser. I mean, I think it attracts attention, makes the head look bigger all of a sudden.
Doesn't have any real curve.
No, just makes them look fluffy. And I hate to say this because it's like such a, easy thing but like, if the females like it, like if the females like, you know, a tuft that like, that's a good thing for the males to have. And I hate saying that because that's a tough thing to say scientifically. Like it's just like, I think the females like it that way. So, they do studies where if you were to take a healthy looking duck and then just like rough up its feathers or paint the feathers and then like see how females interact with it, you can show, oh yeah, females seem to like that because when I tussled it up a little bit, you know, females didn't like it as much, but I think that's a fact. This was a duck we saw at the Liberty Loop last year, and it looks like a common merganser, but then you say, ooh, wait, that's not all white. It has a red breast, hence the red-breasted merganser. So a third merganser. Now, they're not rare, but all of the rest videos or all of these videos are coming from Lake Erie. So if you go to the Great Lakes, which aren't that far, right, you'll see a lot of these diving ducks that love the deeper water. So once again, if you're birding, you know, we live in a very diverse state. You know, maybe take a short trip somewhere and you'll get to see some more ducks. Red-breasted mergansers, not common for our area. But once again, if you were to travel a bit, you might, you know, find deeper water closer to the Jersey Shore where they would thrive. Okay. And so just as I wrap up, you know, some of the things I've said before, I've made videos on, like, look at every duck, it might surprise you. So I'm like, oh, mallard, 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 mallard. And I'm, you know, getting a little bored at this point. But then all of a sudden I notice, ooh, look at you. Like, I didn't see you in the bunch of the mallards, but oh, that's a blue-winged teal. I love those birds. But look at those pretty wings, you know, and just if I just dismissed them all as mallards or if I didn't take a picture, I wouldn't have seen it. So just, you know, you know, a piece of advice. And it obviously is getting harder. The swans last year, we went from 6 to 1. This year so far, we've gone from 8, and we're holding at 3. We've been holding at 3 for a while. We're hoping all of them reach adulthood. But last year was just so crazy hot. All right, and you'll see just this is usually like in the old days, this was water. All right, and 6.5 station, like just, you know, it wasn't this dry. This year, not quite as bad as last year, but close. So, you know, this is where the swans are going. Like they used to be swimming and eating food there, but now they're in this hot field. All right, and if you notice their mouths are open, birds don't sweat to cool down. All right, so they're just overheating. And, you know, in the short aftermath of this, there was a reduction in the number of the cygnets. So they're not happy here. And as our climate changes, that means all sorts of things. First, it means that winters are going to be warmer. All right, that is going to affect some birds negatively. Other birds might start hanging out here more, like black vultures. We have more of them because it's warmer. Carolina wrens spend more winters here because it's warmer. A lot of those, like even the red-bellied woodpeckers, common here now. They weren't so much 20 years ago because it's slowly getting warmer. So some birds are allowed are finding themselves able to spend more time here. But if we're also getting more severe weather, you know, what is that doing for the habitats, et cetera? So certainly, you know, as we go out and bird watching, you know, these are all things that we're worried about. And you know, the Audubon Society, all of, you know, our environmental organizations are working hard to preserve habitat and to help these species as they try to deal with all of these environmental challenges at the same time. So it is great to go, you know, and to see these. And I, you know, just as I wrap up, I've said this before. I hope no one takes offense. It's beautiful. Go to the Virgin Islands. It's beautiful. Go to Arizona. But after a certain time, I just like to say, like, I've seen all the birds. Like, I'm just, you know, we're done. Like, we've seen all of them. Here, it's so diverse. We live in a really diverse area. Just all the beautiful things we can see. And this time of year, there's even more with the migrants. So if you can get out a place near your house, wonderful. If you were looking for a hike, I'm giving one along the Delaware and the Mongop this Thursday. And then the first Tuesday of the month on the 7th, I'll be walking at Goshen along the Heritage Trail. The second Sunday of the month on the 12th, I'll be at the Bashakill. So if you're looking to get out and get with, you know, like mine's looking for birds, you know, there's a bunch of opportunities. Then there's all of these other great birding groups. The Mearns bird group, they do great hikes. So if you're looking for people, you know, like to get outside like to hike, like to look at wildlife, there's lots of kindred spirits of Orange County. I hope you find. All right, well, thank you so very much for coming. Did anybody have any questions that I can help you with? Yeah.
How many babies does an average swan have in each one? So it's 6 or 8 or?
I think the eggs go from 4 to 10. So this is hard for me to answer because very often, like I wait in the spring, like, ooh, when are they come out? I'm not sure that when I see them with 6, as I did last year, that was the max, like that was the total, or whether like lots of things eat baby ducks, especially the smaller they are. Like maybe they had 8 and I missed 2, by the time I saw them. So I think 4 to 6 is the most common gut feeling from my experience. 2 years ago, 4 fledged. So I like there were 4 from the instant I saw them. I never saw like more than that. So I saw 4 from the beginning, and then all 4 grew to adulthood. Whereas this year 8 to 3, last year 6 to 1. So and we have predators. We have foxes, coyotes, mink, snapping turtles. Grab them from underwater. Herons can go after them. Eagles go after ducks. So there's a lot of things that eat ducks out there, especially when they're small. Anybody else? I'm sorry. I thought there was a thing or two on the chat. Let me just check that. Okay, good night. Thank you. See you next week. And if anyone had that problem again, someone said there was still a problem with Zoom link dates out there. If you ever have any issues, if there was multiple versions, if you went to the Orange County Audubon Society, you went to presentations, the first thing that you would see is the Zoom link. So if you're just looking for a place to find that, someone in the beginning said there was still a misprint. Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful night.